The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Oh, one of my favorite parts of the week. Every week on First and 12, Mitch Harper and I dive in. We tend to, listen, we're kind of one mind on the rankings. It's been a few weeks since we fought over anything. I think that at some point we just go, yeah, you know what, throw it in there. It's like, you know what's going on at the top, you know what's going on at the bottom. And I think last week was a very, very, very average middle of the conference. You're starting to see a little bit more separation. Some teams that you're going, okay, they're showing me something here. So let's jump in here. Eric, fire it up. Let's get to our power rankings. It's one of our favorites.
The Big 12 Power Rankings. A weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
Mitch, roll it out here for us. I think the top is pretty well set. I'm sure you'd have some people in Iowa that would maybe disagree with you, but until proven otherwise, my goodness, our power rankings stay quite the same at the very top.
Number one, BYU, and I think there's a great tiebreaker between comparative outcomes with how BYU performed against UCF on the road and how Iowa State struggled with UCF at home. If you want to split hairs between these two undefeateds, I think that's a nice differentiator between the two resumes right now. Iowa State at number 2, and then the top 4 stays the same. Kansas State at 3 and Colorado at 4. Those are your title contenders right now in the Big 12 Conference as we head into the final months of the season.
It's really wild, too, because Kansas State held serve against Kansas. How many years in a row have they beaten Kansas now? I think it's like 15,
16.
Right? 16, 15?
16.
Wow. Okay. Embarrassing. That's not a rivalry right there. That's not a sum. That's why it's Farmageddon between Iowa State and Kansas State, Kansas. You can't have nice things if you can't beat your in-state rivals in anything but basketball. So, yeah, BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado. And you could make an argument that, hey, Kansas State did not show up against a bad Kansas team. Colorado just continues to take care of business. But there's that glimmer of, I don't believe it. And, by the way, Kansas State has the edge in that one because they beat Colorado, of course, a couple of weeks ago. So that's your top 4, as you mentioned. And then it gets a little bit weird. Cincinnati's 5. I think we kept them there almost by default, right, where it's like, okay, yeah, you lost this week and you lost to Colorado and you were 5-2. Now you're 5-3, and everybody else is kind of around that area in terms of records. West Virginia's 4-4, but roll out the 4 losses that West Virginia has this year.
West Virginia has lost to Penn State, undefeated. Pitt, a rival, undefeated. Iowa State, undefeated.
Jeez. And
Kansas State, 1 loss. So you're
what's
talking about –
what is that, 24-1 that they're facing off of, basically? Those are the teams. They have 4 losses, and they're to teams that are 24-1 on the season. That's an insanely difficult schedule.
All ranked and all really good football teams that they've lost to. So West Virginia, and the fact that they had their backup quarterback step in and pretty much dominate to the point where I kind of thought, Garrett Green, the injured quarterback, he's a great runner and he's fantastic in that space, but Martial is the better passer. He's more accurate. And I've always felt like if West Virginia had an accurate passer, maybe they could be something that's maybe contending for Big 12 titles. I don't expect that right now, but I think maybe they could play spoiler a little bit down the stretch.
So then, like I said, it gets really weird because Baylor beat of course, Baylor gets the win over a bad Oklahoma State team, but they're 4-4 in the season. But, of course, they're winning, and so what are you going to say? Now, I feel bad because we kind of dinged the Sun Devils this week. The Arizona State Sun Devils, number 8 in the conference. We actually – We lowered them down the list there, and it's not because they just had a bye. It's because some of the teams that won, I still also have a little bit of a feeling that Arizona State is not quite turning that corner all the way. They're 5-3 on the season, but they did not play this week, and so there you go. TCU starts to climb up the rankings a little bit after wins over Utah and then a comeback win against Texas Tech. And the Red Raiders find themselves a weird spot here, number 10 in the power rankings. UCF is 11, and you could even make an argument that they could go further down the list because they've now lost, 5 in a row? That's a team that is beyond reeling at this point. But you could tell where the talent is. But again, the teams that are below them are just like a battle of who's going to be awful in this conference right now. Houston at 13. By the way, Houston at 13, congrats. You guys are climbing up the list here. Willie Fritz and his guys. Listen to the last 3 teams in the conference in Big 12 play. This is not like a one-off, like you're usually good, but you had a bad week. Arizona is just absolutely flopping right now. I don't know what's going on down there with Brent Brennan, but it's not good. They're 14th. Utah, 15th. Saved by the grace of Mike Gundy still losing football games, who are now 0-5 in conference. Utah has lost 4 in a row. They're 1-4 in conference play, and so if you can believe it, Utah is 15th. BYU is number 1 in the power poll, just the way you had it after week 9 of the college football season, Mitch.
Going into BYU Utah, it's what we expected, just maybe roles reversed.
Reversed, yep. Yeah, it was totally going to be flipped. I mean, that one's I don't think any of us saw that one happening that way. But we're going to take another break here. We'll come back. There's your power rankings, another one in the books right there for you. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We will wrap things up. What's next in the Big 12 next week? Well, we're trying to guess and figure out where this BYU and Utah game is going to be in 2 weeks. But next week, we know exactly what those teams are going to be doing, and that is taking the week off. But the conference still rolls on. Can Texas Tech shock Iowa State? Kansas State, who they're taking on this week to try to stay in that hunt. And all the other teams that are trying to make their way into bowl eligibility or different versions of trying to win this wide-open conference. Stay with us. It is First and 12, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio.